Have you ever thought about how the smallest things can cause the biggest problems? Imagine a single apple causing a war that lasted 10 years and destroyed an entire kingdom. That's exactly what happened in one of the most famous stories from Greek mythology. The golden apple was perfectly formed and gleamed like the sun. On its surface, three words were carved into it: for the fairest. Those simple words would start a chain of events as destructive as a row of falling dominoes, leading to the legendary Trojan War. And this isn't just any piece of fruit. The golden apple became the match that lit the fire of jealousy between three powerful goddesses. Their rivalry would eventually drag heroes and kings, soldiers and civilians, and even the gods themselves into a conflict that would be remembered for thousands of years. It's funny how something as simple as an apple could change the course of history, but in the world of Greek mythology, even the smallest actions can have epic consequences. So this all started at what should have been the perfect wedding. Peleus, a mortal hero, was marrying Thetis, a beautiful sea nymph. The guest list included everyone who was anyone in the Greek pantheon: Zeus, Poseidon, Apollo, and all the other major gods gathered to celebrate at this grand feast. One goddess was left off the guest list: Eris, the goddess of discord and strife. The other gods thought they were being clever. After all, who wants chaos at their wedding? But they forgot an important lesson. Sometimes excluding trouble only makes it worse. Eris wasn't the type to sulk at home and cry about being left out. She had a different kind of party favor in mind. She crafted a golden apple so beautiful it would make the finest jeweler jealous. This wasn't just any apple. It was a carefully planned weapon of chaos, and Eris knew exactly how to use it. She waited until the celebration was in full swing, and when the wine was flowing and the gods were distracted with feasting and dancing, Eris slipped into the party unnoticed. In one smooth motion, she rolled the golden apple into the midst of the celebration. As the apple spun across the floor, catching the light and drawing every eye, three words were engraved on its surface, sparking a fire that would burn for years to come. The shimmering golden apple lay on the banquet floor, its inscription, "For the Fairest," glinting in the light. Three of the most powerful goddesses in Olympus, Hera, Athena, and Aphrodite, instantly stopped their merrymaking. Each one believed without question that the apple belonged to her. Hera, the queen of the gods, stood tall and proud. As Zeus's wife and the guardian of marriage, she felt the title was naturally hers. Next to her, Athena, the wise warrior goddess, thought her combination of intelligence and skill made her the obvious choice. Aphrodite, goddess of love and beauty, simply smiled, knowing that beauty itself was her domain. The argument quickly turned ugly. Hera pointed out her royal status and perfect marriage. Athena listed her victories in battle and her gifts of wisdom to mankind. And Aphrodite reminded everyone that poets already sang songs about her beauty across Greece. The other gods backed away as the three goddesses' voices grew louder and their threats more serious. Just want to go back and say Hera's quote-unquote perfect marriage, because she hated Zeus because he was a lech. Zeus watched this unfold with growing concern, and as the king of gods, he should have settled the matter. But even he wasn't foolish enough to get between his wife, his daughter, and the goddess of love. He knew that picking any one of them would turn the other two into lifelong enemies. The whole situation was like trying to pick a favorite child, and there was no right answer. Finally, Zeus came up with a solution that he thought might save him from this mess. Instead of judging himself, he decided to pass this problem to someone else. There was a young shepherd on Mount Ida, a mortal named Fairest, who was said to be blessed with excellent judgment, and Zeus declared that this mortal would decide which goddess deserved the apple. The three goddesses agreed to this plan, each confident she could convince a simple shepherd of her superior worth. Fairest lived a quiet life on Mount Ida. He spent his days tending to his flock and playing his shepherd's pipe. He had no idea that his world was about to change forever when three of the most powerful goddesses in existence appeared before him one sunny afternoon. They came in all their divine glory, their presence so bright it nearly blinded the young shepherd. Each goddess took her turn trying to win Paris's favor. Hera stepped forward first, her regal bearing making the shepherd feel like he should bow. She promised him power beyond imagination. He would rule all of Asia and become the wealthiest king the world had ever known. For a shepherd who had spent his life with sheep, the offer was like showing a starving man a feast. Athena's offer came next. She promised to make Paris the greatest warrior, most brilliant general who had ever lived. He would win every battle and be remembered for his wisdom throughout history. Many men would have jumped at such an offer, and the chance to be strong and smart. Many men would have jumped at such an offer. Then came Aphrodite's turn. While her sisters had offered power and glory, she took a different approach. She promised Paris the love of Helen of Sparta. Widely known to be the most beautiful woman in the world, her face had launched 1,000 marriage proposals, and her beauty was legendary throughout Greece. What Aphrodite didn't mention was that Helen was already married to King Menelaus. Paris barely hesitated. He was young, and like many men, he let his heart rule his head. That's not the words I would use, but that's okay. The promise of power and wisdom seemed distant and abstract compared to the immediate appeal of love and beauty. He handed the golden apple to Aphrodite, not knowing that with this simple gesture, he had just sealed the fate of his city and thousands of lives. The consequences of Paris' choice rippled through the ancient world like a stone thrown into a still pond. Aphrodite, true to her word, helped Paris travel to Sparta, where Helen lived with her husband, King Menelaus. The goddess's magic worked as power, making Helen fall deeply in love with Paris the moment their eyes met. Like two moths drawn to a flame, Paris and Helen couldn't resist their attraction. Despite knowing it was wrong, despite the fact that she was married to a powerful king, Helen agreed to leave everything behind. In the dead of the night, they fled Sparta together, sailing across the wine-dark sea to the distant shores of Troy. King Menelaus' rage at this betrayal shook the foundations of Greece. His brother Agamemnon called upon an ancient oath sworn by all of Helen's former suitors. And this oath happened years before her marriage. They had promised to defend her marriage to whoever won her hand, and now that promise would bring the greatest warriors of Greece to Menelaus' aid. What started as a simple choice between three beautiful goddesses had now set the stage for the greatest conflict the ancient world had ever seen. Ships were built in every harbor, weapons forged in every city, and armies gathered in every kingdom, all because Paris had chosen love over power or wisdom, all because of a golden apple with three simple words. The cost of Paris' decision would prove higher than anyone could have imagined. His choice would bring destruction to his homeland, death to countless heroes, and change the lives of mortals and gods alike. As the Greek armies prepared for war, neither Paris nor Helen could have known that their love story would be remembered not as a romance, but as a spark that would burn Troy to the ground. The largest fleet ever assembled in the ancient world set sail for Troy, with 1,000 ships cutting through the waves like deadly arrows. At their helm stood the greatest heroes of their age: fierce Achilles with his unbreakable skin, Odysseus who could talk his way out of any trap, and Ajax, strong as a mountain and twice as unmovable. For 10 years, the walls of Troy stood against the Greek assault. The fighting was brutal and personal, with warriors facing off in single combat while the gods themselves took sides. Apollo sent his arrows into the Greek camps, while Athena guided her champions through the bloodiest battles. Hera's fury at being denied the golden apple only made her more determined to see Troy fall. The battlefields around Troy became graveyards for heroes. Achilles killed Hector, Hector was Troy's greatest defender, in a fight that shook the earth. Paris, whose choices started it all, shot an arrow guided by Apollo that found the one weak spot in Achilles' heel. And one by one, the greatest warriors of both sides fell, their names destined to echo through history. The tide of war finally turned with a gift, a massive wooden horse left outside Troy's gates, and we all know this story. The Trojans believed it was an offering to Athena, and they brought it inside their walls. The horse was filled with Greek warriors who emerged in the dead of night. They opened the gates, and the Greek army poured in like a flood breaking through a dam, and Troy burned for 7 days and 7 nights. Its mighty walls, said to be built by the gods themselves, crumbled to ash. The city that had stood for centuries fell because of a beauty contest and a golden apple. As smoke rose from the ruins, the surviving Trojans scattered across the Mediterranean, planting the seeds of new civilizations that would grow into mighty empires of their own. The golden apple's story shows us how the smallest things can create the biggest changes. It's like a pebble starting an avalanche. From one spiteful goddess and her golden apple came the fall of a great city, the birth of new nations, and the tales that would be told for thousands of years to come. The consequences of that fateful choice spread far beyond Troy's walls. Greek settlers, fleeing the war's aftermath, founded colonies across the Mediterranean. Roman poets traced their ancestors to Troy's survivors, making the golden apple part of their imperial destiny. Even today, we still use the phrase apple of discord to describe something that causes trouble and arguments. In the end, the golden apple teaches us about choices in their unexpected results. Paris chose love over power or wisdom, never guessing his decision would destroy his homeland. Gods and mortals alike learned that fate works in mysterious ways, and sometimes all it takes is a single golden fruit to change the world. So the next time you see an apple, remember how one goddess's party snub led to a war that shaped human history. Recently, the thought occurred to me. So why are trees and fruit so essential to mythology? It's just a weird thing. I was just doing some research, Adam and Eve, Eris, things like that. Well, Life and sustenance. Trees are essential for life that provide oxygen, food, and shelter. It's a connection to the divine. Their height and longevity often symbolize a connection between earth and the divine realms. A lot of myths feature sacred trees that are home to gods or spirits. They also represent the cycles of life and death and wisdom and knowledge. So you have like the world tree, Yggdrasil in mythology, the tree of knowledge of good and evil in the Bible, the Bodhi tree in Buddhism. The trees also provide fruit, which is nourishment and abundance. There's also the temptation aspect of it. And in some myths, certain fruits grant immortality or eternal life. Fruits can also represent hidden knowledge or secret, such as the story of the forbidden fruit in the Garden of Eden. The golden apples of Hesperides, which we're going to talk about, were a symbol of immortality. The pomegranate in Greek mythology is associated with Persephone and her connection to the underworld. And the peach. The peach is a symbol of longevity and immortality in Chinese culture. Trees and fruit are powerful symbols due to their connection to essential aspects of human existence, life, death, nourishment, temptation, things like that. And they provide rich metaphors for exploring complex themes and ideas about the world and our place in it.